Hi everyone. Today I prepared a lesson for you on properties of water, and we'll also be doing a really fun experiment to demonstrate some of the properties that we'll be exploring in this lesson. So here is the table of contents. We'll first be brainstorming a few of the properties of water, and then we'll be experimenting to demonstrate some of those properties. And then we'll reflect on our results from the experiment. And finally, we'll connect all of the concepts and the results from the experiment to a real life context and also to your unit of inquiry. So let's first brainstorm a few ideas on the properties of water. And before that, we'll first have to meet water. So here I've listed a few facts about water. First, his nickname. He has two. The first one is H2O. Here is water waving his hand. H2O, that's the way we call water in chemistry or in science. And we also call water, the water molecule is also commonly known to have a Mickey Mouse shape because the two hydrogen atoms here are forming figures like the ears of Mickey Mouse, and the oxygen here is like the face of Mickey Mouse. And so this leads us to the next fact. Elements of water. Water is made of hydrogen and oxygen. You don't really have to know in detail what these elements are, but just know that water is made of hydrogen and oxygen. Water's specialty is to form hydrogen bonding. Now, again, you don't have to exactly know the details behind hydrogen bonding, but just know that water is really good at making hydrogen bonding. And the hydrogen bonding links water molecules together. Water's friends are polar substances. Again, you don't have to know what polar substances are, but an example of a polar substance is ethanol, and we can find ethanol in the hand sanitizers that we use often these days. And so this hand sanitizer, it is formed of 75% alcohol, and it'll also have water in here. And its foes or its enemies is nonpolar substances. And so an example of that is oil. And as you can see here, oil and water don't mix together. That's why I describe them as foes. So we'll look at the properties of water. So here's the first property, cohesion. And cohesion means the tendency of water molecules sticking together. So we can see in this first image that water is on a penny, but for some reason, the water is clumping together. It's formed a dome-like shape, and that's possible due to the cohesion forces of water. The water molecules are sticking together and forming a clump, so that's why it's not over flooding the penny. And so we'll quickly watch this video to illustrate that better. And so as you can see here, water is continuously being added on the penny, but the water is not running off the penny because the water molecules are sticking together. But there will be a limit when the water overflows. So coming back to this slide, the cohesion forces of water is the reason why we can often see water in clumps in these drops on leaves. Now we'll look at the second property called adhesion. And here is a diagram that really illustrates cohesion and adhesion well. Cohesion, as I said, is water molecules sticking together. So water molecule and water molecule, the two sticking together. And then adhesion is the tendency of water molecules sticking to others. So a water molecule sticking to another object here. And so it's holding on to that object. And so here is an example. When we have a really narrow tube, we can see that there's this curve here in the water, and that's because the water in the tube is sticking to the walls of the tube. And the forces that are making the water stick to the walls of the tube are stronger than the forces that are making the water molecules stick to each other. And so that's why we have this this curve. And the third property of water is its unique density, and I mean that its solid state, or ice, floats on the liquid state, liquid water. And so we can see that here in the image. And that's because in ice, the water molecules are more spaced apart than in liquid water. And in cold water, or in colder water, it's stuck together in a more compact way, but still, the water molecules in ice are spaced apart more. And so this is the reason why water has its unique density. Now we'll look at its fourth and fifth properties. So the fourth property is that it has a high specific heat capacity. Now you don't have to know this term. What this basically means is that it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time and a lot of heat to boil water or to raise water by 1 degree Celsius. And so as we can see here, because of water's high specific heat capacity, it takes up to 100 degrees Celsius of heat to boil water. And water also has a high heat of vaporization, meaning that it just takes a lot of energy for water to turn into gaseous water, so water vapor. And this is why we sweat when we're hot, because the sweat, when it vaporizes or when it turns into water vapor, it takes a lot of heat with it. So now, let's get into the experiment. The name of the experiment is the capillary action experiment. Let's take a look. Starting with the materials, we're going to be making a paper bridge, actually 2 paper bridges using paper towel. And then we also need 2 colors of food coloring, in this case yellow and blue. Put 10 to 15 drops of each color, each into the leftmost and the rightmost cup. And each of these cups just have tap water. And the cups on each side should have a bit more water than the cup in the middle, and stir the food coloring after you put it in. Then place the paper bridges into the cups so that the cups are connected to each other, to one another, and let's just wait and see what kind of changes happen. A few things to note. First, the food coloring climbing up the paper towel and down into the middle cup, and also the changes in the water levels of the leftmost and the rightmost cup. And so you should see that the water level in the left and right cups decrease, and the water level in the middle cup increases. And this is very subtle and gradual, so you might not be able to notice it, but maybe watch this video a few times to notice. And at the end of the experiment, you should be able to obtain a green color in the middle cup. Stir the water in the cup if the results aren't apparent. Alright, I hope you enjoyed the experiment, and now let's move on to the reflection. So, how did the experiment work in the way it did? How is it possible? Now, the ideal situation, or the ideal result, is shown in the left image here, where the water level in each cup is identical, and also the rainbow is formed in a more uniform manner. In our experiment, there were a few gaps, but here it's continuous. The rainbow color is continuous throughout the 7 cups. And the reason for this phenomenon here, that the colored water took the route of the paper towel, essentially. It took the route of the paper towel, water climbed up the paper towel, and it moved into the next cup. And that's how it formed this chain reaction. And this is possible because of the adhesion forces, water molecules sticking to other objects, and cohesion forces, water molecules sticking to each other, those 2 forces acting together. And in this case, the adhesion forces, water molecules sticking to the paper towel in this instance, was greater than the force of the water molecules sticking together, which is how water was able to climb up the paper towel into the next cup. And We call this kind of phenomenon the capillary action. And as we can see here, it's the adhesion forces and the cohesion forces of water working together to bring water up a surface, up a solid surface, liquid water up a solid surface, and in this case, up the paper towel. And so let's try to connect these concepts, what we've just learned in this lesson, to real life and your unit of inquiry. Now, a really common example of capillary action is in plants, and that's because the water in soil or in the ground is absorbed by plants, and then through capillary action, or the adhesion forces and cohesion forces of water acting together, the water is brought up from the roots into the stem or the trunk of the tree, and then into the branches of the plant. That's how water is able to circulate in the plant, or water is able to move up the plant. Now, why is this important? Well, capillary action is really important in plants because it's the source of water. It's how plants are able to absorb water. And if plants aren't able to absorb water, then they also aren't able to perform photosynthesis, or the act of producing oxygen and providing that oxygen to us so that we can breathe the oxygen. So capillary action in this case plays a really important role for the plants and eventually to us as well. Now let's bring all of this back to the unit of inquiry. Through this lesson, first you can list unique features found in nature, the properties of water, and also the properties of water being illustrated in plants. And you can also describe the use of unique features. So in this case, plants, and there are also many other instances where the forces of water act in real life. And finally, I believe that you can also explain why these unique features found in nature are important. And as I explained, it's because with the capillary action of water, the cohesion and adhesion forces of water acting together, plants can perform photosynthesis and provide the oxygen that we need to breathe. So that is the end of the lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Please try it at home. It's very simple, but also make sure that you are under your parent's supervision or your guardian supervision when performing this experiment. If you have any questions after watching this video or performing the experiment itself, please contact me under this email address. Thanks for watching.